We want to definitely welcome you all to Monday Night Live, where we meet once a month on Mondays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we thank you for all of you who are just getting off of work and joining us, and for those of you who hit the alarm clock and stayed with us a little bit late. We're happy to see you. Welcome to Monday Night Live. This is a place where we come together in community to talk about all things D-free, all things money, just our communal space to be able to share. If you have questions, we definitely want to be able to answer those. And so let's just do a little bit of housekeeping as we get ready to get started. First of all, in order to minimize our distractions, we make sure that everyone can really mute. That helps to mute the microphone feedback. Just if you could remain muted. However, you can feel free to unmute yourself if your desire is to join the conversation. This is an open forum and we love to talk to you. So if that's your desire, you can go ahead and unmute. But if you're not speaking, we just ask that you keep the microphone feedback to a minimum. Also, these sessions are being recorded. When you came on, there should have been a nice little thing that says you're being recorded. We do this because we want to make it available for rewatch through our website, which is www.dfreefoundation.org. And we're also available on our YouTube channel. Sometimes people are coming in late and they miss some of the nuggets, and we want to make sure that those things are available. As always, we encourage you to jump in the chat. We want to make sure our chat remains active. If you have a question during the session, you can type it in the chat and we'll do our best to address them. As a reminder, we also encourage you to continue to check the chat. Even if you're not active in it, we drop all the links that we're talking about today. We put them in the chat. We're grateful for Josh, who is in the background, and Miss Deb and Angie and those who are joining us, who are working in the background. We're grateful for them because they're going to be dropping links all night. And so if there's information you want to follow up on, you'll find those links in the chat. Last but not least, there's a raised hand feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. If you want to share your thoughts, we encourage you to use that feature because that way I can see you and we can add you to the conversation. So we want to make sure that you use those things. So that's just our housekeeping for tonight. And I want to make sure that you know that tonight we have two dynamic individuals that will be joining us. First and foremost, Dr. DeForest B. Soaries Jr., who is the CEO and founder of D-Free Global Foundation Incorporated. We are excited because we get to grab Dr. Soaries and get nuggets from his mouth and be able to hear all things D-Free direct from the source. And he also lets us in on stuff before anybody else knows about it. That's because you're part of this Monday Night Live family. Second, we have with us Reverend Dallas Lanier, who is the executive director of Project Green in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, let me say this. When you hear green, that G-R-E-E-N, it's capital for a reason. And I'm hoping that tonight you'll be able to find out what that's all about. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down so that you can see Dr. Soaries.
All right, Reverend Sutton, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Where you've been traveling to? You know, Reverend Sutton has this strategy where she goes places one day and then maybe 2 weeks later she posts it on social media. So when you think she's in England, she's in Egypt. When you think she's in Egypt, she's in New Jersey, you know, and so it's hard to keep up with her, but she keeps moving around. So where have you been lately? That's what I want to know.
Lately, I've been to Chicago. I've been to, let's see, my last trip was to...
You can't even remember.
Yeah, I gotta remember where I was. I was in DC, Chicago, Youngstown, Ohio, and Pittsburgh.
All right, well,
those are my last trips.
A lady on the move. Thank you so much, and thanks for your hosting, as you always do on Monday night. Thank you to all of you who have joined us. We've got folk from Alabama. We've got folk from First Baptist and points in between. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. And tonight, as Reverend Sutton mentioned, we have a very special friend of mine, a very special guest, and a very special leader, Reverend Dallas Lanier. I've known Reverend Lanier for years. I don't even know how many. And there are two things I want you to know about him that's not in his bio. Thing number one is that the last time I was on a picket line outside on the sidewalk, marching in front of an establishment with a placard was when Reverend Lanier and I picketed payday loan stores. I'll ask him to explain what that is for those who don't know. Many states have outlawed payday loan stores. For instance, in my state, there's no such thing as a store that you can go into to borrow a 400% loan. but there are many, many states that still have stores that will actually allow you to come in and borrow money. And although I told Al Sharpton, we did an interview together on Fox News some years ago, I told Sharpton that I had retired from marching and picketing. But Reverend Lanier, our guest tonight, actually called me out of retirement because the payday loan industry, in my view, is the most, it's the worst industry in this country. And there's some bad industries, but I've called the payday loan the crack cocaine of the financial services industry, because when you take out a payday loan, the Center for Responsible Lending has said that the average person that borrows one of those high interest loans needs 9 more loans before they get out of it. And when I was with Reverend Lanier at one of his meetings, we talked to a woman who had borrowed something like $500 to buy a computer for her son to go to college. And by the time she finished paying off the loan, she had paid off about $2,500. So that's what I want you to know. Reverend Lanier has been able to do what Al Sharpton, NAACP, Jesse Jackson, no one else has been able to do, and that is to call me out of my protest retirement to picket a payday loan store. And Reverend, we may have to go back to that. The second thing I want you to know about Reverend Lanier is that he is the founder of 2 very significant institutions. Institution number 1 is Project Green, which is a financial empowerment organization based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And number 2 is a church. And I'm going to let him tell you about that church, because I was with him over the weekend in Grand Rapids, both for his Project Green conference and at his church on Sunday morning. So Dallas Lanier, God bless you. Welcome to Monday Night Live. Tell the folks the things about you that I didn't tell them.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor Soares. I am privileged to be with you yet again. This makes, let's see, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is the 4th day that we've been together one way or another, 4th day in a row.
Hanging out.
Yes, sir. And so, as Dr. Soares mentioned, I am the executive director and founder of Project Green. Green is the grassroots economic empowerment network. As Dr. Soares talked about, we actually kind of got our start fighting against payday lending. We've done that in a number of different iterations, which culminated in the launching of our 501c3. And now everything that we do one way or another is still trying to move people away from the negative impacts of payday lending, whether we talk about it directly or it's just a result of our work. And that is, we do 2 things. Well, our vision statement is this: we're turning everyday people into money heroes. So we describe a money hero as someone who is working towards their financial goals, and then they turn and help somebody else to do the same. And we do that by providing financial capabilities, workshops and programs, and by doing economic advocacy. And through advocacy, we're trying to change systems that create economic oppression and financial struggle. And so that is the work of Project Green. And then you mentioned Journey Church. So Journey Church, we started virtually in August 2020. And I'll just fast forward and say that we've been meeting now in person consistently for about 13 months. And I have on here tonight Reverend Spears and Bobby Locke, who are both members of Journey. My sister Polly is with us almost every Sunday, if not every Sunday, and some other regular attendees as well. But the other stuff, Pastor Soares, I'm husband of 1 wife. We have 3 children, and I went to the University of Michigan, and we play Rutgers every year. I think about you all when we're playing Rutgers. And I'm here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and again, happy to be here tonight.
So Reverend Sutton, let me just tell you something about this young man.
Yes.
I have said with great passion that I am not a founder. And of course, with D3, I'm somewhat of a founder, but D3 technically was founded by a lot of people. but Reverend Sutton and his wife, who was a member of the city commission in Grand Rapids, they founded Project Green, which is as he described it, and then they founded a church all within one season of their life. And you just can't imagine how hard these folks work. On Sunday morning, they rent space owned by another institution, and they've got to take in all the equipment. They've got to take in the fans, the offering plates. They've got to take in the sound system, and they got to set it up and then break it down. It's just the most wonderful family project. Their children are involved, and I just love being there. You know, coming from a church as large as First Baptist, it is just heartwarming to me to see young people like Dallas and Sunita Lanier work on that level of ministry where people can touch each other. Everybody knows each other. It reminds me of my first church. Just a beautiful ministry. And let me congratulate you, Dallas, because while I was there, you took me to see an 11,000 square foot commercial property that you and your wife now own. Congratulations. You know, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Pastor. You said the ministry is a wonderful family project. I don't know if my kids think that every week, but I'm glad you think so.
Well, I had a little meeting with your daughter, and I was explaining to her the kind of skills that she's developing without even realizing it. You know, when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time with my dad, and I thought I was just hanging out with dad. Little did I know that I was developing skills that people now pay me a lot of money to use to advise them in their efforts. So hopefully it's stuck. And every time I talk to her, I'm going to check in on that. Now, Dallas, long before we started thinking about what we now call the D-Free Collective, you contacted me and said, listen, I'm committed to D-Free. We use your materials. We agree with the principles. And what we'd like to do is figure out a way to have a more formal relationship with the D-Free movement and Project Green. Explain to everybody what you had in mind and where you think we're headed with that.
Yes, sir, Pastor, be glad to. So as I mentioned with Project Green, we do financial capability training, and you know, we are excited about the curriculum that we had developed ourselves, which we still use in various forms. But long story short, part of the limitation to our curriculum was that it was strictly designed to be taught in person. And Project Green became a 501c3 in February of 2019. We all know what happened in March of 2020. The world went virtual. And although we had been thinking and talking about going virtual, we were not prepared for that. And so we began, and I should just mention, if I didn't say it before, but Bobby Locke, who's on here, is also, she's the director of operations for Project Green. So she knows all of this history as well. But we began to work on developing our own online curriculum and platform. And because of my familiarity with with D-Free, I knew that D-Free already had its online platform and providing the instruction that way. As you said in the introduction, we were using D-Free both for our staff development, and we were giving away the books as prizes to workshop participants, all kinds of things. And so when, you know, I just said, why would we recreate this wheel when I know that, you know, everything that's in D-Free is what we want to say. You know, I'm passionate about staying connected with Dr. Soaries and D-Free. So, you know, one of the main incentives for us was to leverage the online platform to be able to spread the message faster, to be able to provide a way where people can do classes on their own individually and not have to wait for a scheduled workshop. But beyond that, you know, we also knew that, you know, part of what we have to offer could be beneficial to other D-Free churches and organizations around the country. You know, so just the content of the 12 Steps workshop was something that we wanted to be able to spread faster and more broadly through the online platform. The $1 Billion Challenge also works well for us. We have a program that's called 500 Strong, where we encourage people to save $500 towards emergencies. They save $400 of their own. We match it with $100 from grant money that we have. And again, the $1 Billion Challenge, that platform allows us to track people's participation more efficiently. And so those were some of the things that we wanted to leverage and that would allow us to scale up our work in partnership with D-Free.
Yeah, it was very inspiring for me, because when we develop materials, when we create events, we do so primarily with the organizations and churches and sorority chapters, fraternities in mind. In other words, D-Free was crafted to be what you call a turnkey operation. And so when we do events, we're really looking for organizations that will use our events as their own. When we built the D-Free Online Academy, we did so hoping people would use the Academy as you have. Folks, Project Green have their own section of the D-Free Online Academy. So they use our content as their own content. And if I'm not mistaken, some of your branding is right there on the website. We offer that to anybody who wants to use it, because we see ourselves as being the developers of and the creators of content, but we see other organizations and churches as the distributors of that content. It's like when I was in the music business, we'd go in the studio and we'd take Fred Hammond in there and he'd make a great record. But Fred made the record, but then we had to go to the record company and the distributors and the radio stations to play and sell the music. And that's why the Project Green relationship is so important for us, because we're not trying to build out a membership for D-Free. I'm not trying to build a following. What we're trying to do is serve the people who serve the people. And you really came along to help us think that through in ways that no one else has. In fact, last year when we did our conference, we actually did our conference simultaneously. So you had people in Grand Rapids for FinFest. You had people live in Grand Rapids, and you had sections of FinFest that were yours, and then other sections emanated from where we were in New Jersey. So what I think I want to ask you is the resources that you use in Grand Rapids that are not D-Free resources. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you have a lot of resources that we'd like to help you promote, you see, because there are other organizations around the country that we're hoping will take some clues from you, not just with D-Free strategies and content, but for instance, that $100 match. How do you go about that? I mean, where did you get the $100 to match people who save $400?
Yes, sir. So, yeah, so that program, again, is called 500 Strong. And we use that number, it's kind of a double entendre. We want people to save $500 for an emergency. As many of the folks on here probably know, the Federal Reserve reported that about 40% of American adults cannot handle a $400 emergency, either with cash on hand or with credit that they can pay off the next month. And so a $400 emergency can actually send somebody into a financial tailspin. So to help people save $500 can actually be quite impactful for a family or an individual. So all of that to say, we want people to save $500, but even beyond that, we want 500 people to save $500 per year. And so with that, that's a $2,500 savings movement here in our city. And then we have vision to actually scale that across the state and really see. I have a vision for doing it in 12 cities across Michigan, and that would be a $3 million savings movement each year.
Right.
Pastor, we were able to successfully receive grants from philanthropic organizations that provide us with those match dollars. So that's a program that we are doing. Another one we are doing is we provide credit building 101 Credit Building 101. That is a curriculum that is straight from the Credit Builders Alliance. They're out of Washington, D.C. And I went through and received a master training certification. So then I could teach it to our staff and teach it to other organizations. And we provide that instruction. That one's been quite popular because it's tangible. It's concrete enough where people know that, unfortunately, they know a lot of times that they have credit problems. And so that'll draw them in, and we can talk to them about, what makes up their credit, how do they access their credit report, what specific things should they be doing to build their credit over time. Another one is Pay It Forward. Pay It Forward is another initiative that we created through, it wasn't just me, but it was a number of people who came up with this idea of creating a church-based fair lending alternative to payday loans.
Mhm.
And so, similar to 500 Strong, a person goes to a church, they may need crisis financial assistance, and that church will provide that. Normally they do it through benevolence. And so we just equip the church with technical training to say, here's how you can do it differently. So that same, let's say $600 that they might get from the church, now if a person chooses to do it, it can become a repayable gift. That's what we call it. It's a repayable gift. So it's a gift in the sense that if you don't repay it, no problem, right? It's treated just like benevolence. But if you do repay it, the church is going to encourage you to not just pay back the $600, but to continue to pay back, as it were, another $250, and then the church will match it with $250. So then they end up with $500 saved of their own. So the next time they have an emergency, they don't have to go to a payday lender. They don't even have to go to the bank to borrow money. They've got their own account. And so that's another one that we are seeking to grow and expand locally and beyond.
So you see, folks, the reason we are building out this network that we're just calling D-Free Collective is because there are people in the country, there are organizations in every city that I go to that are doing great things, and D-Free is just a part of it. And while we are not trying to be all things to all people, but we can introduce people to each other. Since Reverend Sutton travels more than I do, I travel. I've been hitting 2 or 3 cities a week this year. I don't know what happened to me that I'm on planes so much, but the point is that there is the potential to create a real movement. I mean, a movement is not just marching and singing "We Shall Overcome," but a movement is when you synergize, when you energize, and you share ideas, share resources. And so we've got 3 concrete programmatic strategies coming out of Grand Rapids under the leadership of Project Green. And so when local strategies like that occur, we at D-Free become the distributor. And I'm passionate about promoting and marketing and equipping people with other people's ideas. So if you're interested, if you're in Texas or in Alabama, and you're interested in knowing more about 500 Strong, that strategy, that approach, if you need help developing a proposal for your local funders to enable you to do that kind of work there, if you're interested in the credit builder strategy, if you're interested in the Pay It Forward model, you should contact Reverend Lanier. We're going to put his email address in the chat, because the value of D-Free has got to be more than a book or workbook and a graduation. The value of the D-Free movement, a financial freedom movement, is when we have all things in common. And in the book of Acts, the 2nd chapter, there are 2 major miracles that happened on that day. The first miracle was that the disciples were able to speak and tell the truth about Jesus in the language of the hearers. That was a miracle because they were all Galileans. Second miracle, however, came later on when in Luke says in Acts chapter 2 that they had all things in common. I know, listen, my experience has been, it's easier to see people speak in tongues than it is to have all things in common. We're not a sharing culture like we used to be. And what I'm trying to do is to encourage all of you to understand that on these issues, I am not the leader, but Reverend Lanier is the leader. And he's talking about 12 cities around Michigan. Suppose we had 12 states around the country, encouraging people to save 400 and have 100. And it's not just 500 strong, it's 500,000 strong. So that's what Monday Night Live is about. Monday Night Live is not just talking about, you know, get started, get ahead, get control, and give back, 12 steps to financial freedom. It's about building the movement by lifting up examples from around the country of people who are doing the kinds of things that all of us can and should be doing. It's great, great, absolutely great. So folks, this Deep Free Collective is really designed to collect information. And then all we want is permission to promote what you're doing. We want to put Grand Rapids, Michigan on our directory list. We're building a map to put on our website so that people in the Michigan area can click on Michigan, click on Grand Rapids, and see Project Green and all of what they have to offer to bring financial freedom to their communities. Dallas, tell us about your church, your Journey Church, because you know I'm going to say this after, but I want you to describe the church and the ministry philosophy, and then I want to talk about what happened yesterday.
I'm scared about what you're going to talk about yesterday, but Pastor, you know, I talked about Journey Church launching virtually, and obviously that was a struggle. But I have to say that in hindsight, there's a part of that I'm grateful for, because one of the things that we emphasize with Journey Church is that, and this is not obviously nothing new to us, this is just Bible, but you know, every time, there's over 80 times in the New Testament that the word church is used, and every time it is used to talk about the people. It's never referring to a place or a building. And so, but we have, usually we talk about going to church, leaving church, putting on church clothes, taking off church clothes, not cussing in the church as though cussing outside the church. So I've wanted to emphasize, as many others have as well, that we are the church. And COVID actually helped us to do that, because we couldn't be together in a building. And so we really, you know, we were able to reflect that mission even in how we launched. So we are a small church. You know, our mission is that we are the people of God, following Jesus daily while but being led by the Holy Spirit. And we gather weekly, and for worship service, sort of what you would normally expect with songs and prayer and scripture and sermon on most Sundays, but actually on the first Sunday of each month, we have a less traditional format. We have what we call our roundtable fellowship, where the chairs are not in auditorium style. We sit around round tables. We have brunch together. This is during our normal worship time. We have brunch together.
Your normal 1 hour worship time.
Yes, our normal 1 hour worship time. We have brunch together. Now we have families who lead that time of worship and fellowship and discussion. And so they are highlighting some devotional thought or asking some questions for discussion at each table. During that first Sunday, we celebrate the Lord's Supper. And again, that's to underscore the idea that we are the church. The church isn't what happens on stage on Sunday morning. It's the people. And so we emphasize being in fellowship with one another, having all things in common, as you talked about, Pastor Soaries, on that first Sunday. So
yeah, COVID forced us to pivot and adapt and to rethink what we mean when we say the word church. You're exactly right. The word church does not mean building. The ecclesia is a fellowship. It's an assembly of people. And what I just love about the Journey Church, well, I'm shocked that you can do all of that in 1 hour. You know, at First Baptist, it took us an hour just to get from praise and worship to the offering. But I never have time to preach if we have 1 hour services. But beyond that, it's the connection between the people. And folks, I'm telling you, every church I know is having to rethink its model. The tradition of the church being a Sunday morning performance is over. Now, frankly, it was dying before COVID, but COVID put the nail in the coffin. But here is what I want to challenge you on, because you use the word small church. We have churches that have literally thousands of members that measure themselves, as you and I talked about. They measure themselves by attendance, by membership, and by money. I don't think we can afford to go into this next season measuring the size of a church by money, members, and attendance. The question is, what kind of impact is the ministry making on people's lives? Because we've got larger churches today than we've ever had. We got more divorce, we've got more violence, we've got more confusion. 44% of Christians in this country don't believe Jesus was sinless. And so we have more confusion as relates to doctrine. What I love about Journey Church is the integrity of the fellowship. The fact that you've embraced a new model based on an old need, and that is for people to be connected in the name of Jesus. What was so startling about yesterday to me, because, as you know, I've preached in churches with 10,000 members, and I've been to the largest churches in the country. But you had a D-Free recognition yesterday of people that have gone through the D-Free program. And at the Journey Church, what you call a small church, I saw more smiling faces and heard stronger testimonies in your startup church than I've heard in some mega churches. Talk about your strategy. I mean, how did you and Bobby and your team get the members of Journey Church committed to and interested in D-Free at the level that you did?
I didn't give them a choice, Pastor.
Also, Pastor Lanier, folks are asking where the church is. So if you could drop a link in the chat, I've gotten 2 private messages as well.
Absolutely, I will put it in there. Yes, so Pastor, we made D-Free our Bible study. We made D-Free our Wednesday evening Bible study, and we did it virtually. Sister Bobby was our facilitator, and it was. I think it was but I know that it was, a bit of an unconventional way to think about Bible study. You think about doing a financial literacy or a financial capability curriculum. That's not necessarily what you would think about with Bible study, but clearly D-Free in 12 steps is based on Luke 15 and 14 and
Right.
16. And so people were able to see that as we began. So that was really it. It was our Bible study. And I would say to any church that may be considering it, that is one good best practice is to incorporate the curriculum into a format that you already have existed. So rather than trying to schedule D-Free as something else to do on a Saturday morning, if you've already got Wednesday evening or Tuesday evening Bible study, to just merge it into that format.
Yeah, we've had people like Reverend Darrell Webster, who made D-Free the curriculum for Sunday school for all ages when they first got started. We've had churches that have a special emphasis on small groups, have D-Free be the content for all of the small groups as they meet for at least 12 weeks. And I was stunned when you said we're going to recognize the D-Free graduates at Journey Church, knowing that it's a startup, knowing that you don't have a large numerical membership. When I saw all those people come forward, person after person, and then I also met some people who are not members of the church, but graduates of D-Free, which indicated to me that you have been using D-Free as a magnet, as an evangelistic outreach tool to get people to come into the church.
Yeah, absolutely, Pastor. That was, excuse me, going to be the next thing that I was going to mention is that because again, having all things in common, sometimes what we have in common is financial trouble. And so the church being able to provide answers to those questions around our finances becomes ministry, right? People were drawn to Jesus when they were hungry because he fed them bread. So, being able to provide this bread to financially hungry people, it speaks for itself.
Great, great. Well, I'm honored to have been there. I love being with you yesterday morning. I love the fellowship. As I said, I love the family engagement and the conference on Saturday. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you probably had half Black, half Hispanic. You had a large Hispanic representation. Lynette Califani Cox was there doing her money coach work, and we had just a marvelous time. Listen, Reverend Sutton, are there any questions? I don't look at the chat and look at the hands and all of that while I'm on Zoom because it's too much, it's too complicated.
The only question most people are asking where the church is, and there have been a lot of celebratory comments about just how well that method of fellowship is and just how great things are. And so people are really appreciative of what you all are speaking about now. And fortunately, Pastor Lanier has been in the chat as well. So he's been answering them as we go along.
He's talking and chatting at the same time?
He's talking and chatting at the same time.
Yeah, see, these young cats, they can do all of that. I had a Zoom before this Zoom. It took me 10 minutes to get into that Zoom, just to get in the Zoom. So once I get in, I'm not trying to be chatting and all of that. But does anyone else from Journey Church have a comment to make? Bobby, you're on. Do you have something to say about the work that you're doing in Grand Rapids that Pastor Lanier didn't say?
I think for me, being obviously a Project Green employee and also a Journey Church member, bringing the two of those things together as a facilitator, I told Dallas a number of times, I feel kind of like an imposter because, the last time I led a Bible study was never. But I'll tell you, it was so worth being nervous every week because God just kind of takes over, you just put it in his hands and he just inspires you and you just go through it. And the discussion.
Yeah.
Wow. People sharing themselves, so I could talk for an hour and I'm not gonna, but I gotta tell you the blessing that this is. Because as a church family, everybody that participated became closer, sister to sister, sister to brother, brother to brother. We became closer because of sharing our experiences. And it's not just about, your finances. It's one of the spiritual, our income is a spiritual blessing.
Yeah.
And keeping our money is a spiritual battle. So, the education, the interaction, people understanding that we all struggle and none of us is alone. So you think you're the only one out there, and it is not, that's not the case. And, there are strength in numbers. The Bible says where two or more are gathered, right?
That's right.
There will I be also. And you can feel it. You can feel people transforming. You can feel, and at the end, we had a couple of testimonials yesterday where they talked about, I look at my finances completely differently now. That's a transformation over, in our case, 11 weeks, where every time I walk into a store, something comes up where, nope, I don't need that. Or it can wait. Or, I'm finally looking at my, wills and estates, things that some of us wouldn't even dream of considering.
Yeah.
Even though it's such a great need. And so we've been brought closer together, we've grown together, and now it's time to, learn one, teach one, right? So I think everybody could agree in that first pilot course there that we were able to legitimately tie together what the Bible says and what we do in the modern world today in our everyday life. And that the Bible, we all know it's timeless, but boy, does it hit you when you're in the middle of a financial wellness conversation And the Bible reference, that the biblical references that you've put into this curriculum just are on point, perfectly timed, and you can see everybody go, oh. And so it's just all good. And I can't wait for us to expand it.
Yeah,
Because it applies to everybody, not just in church, everybody, everywhere. And so I think, we're just so honored to be a part of it, and that our programs and our curriculums integrate so well that it's a natural extension of what our mission, our vision already are doing. So, okay, I'm going to stop now.
No, I
well,
have-
Bobby, listen, thank you. You know, I've been preaching since 1975. And it wasn't until this D-free ministry that I would go someplace and preach. And then after the service is over, like yesterday, people walk over to me and start telling me all their business. You know, how rare is it, Dallas, to have someone walk up and say, I really enjoyed your message. And I just want you to know, I lowered my interest rate on my car, or I paid off my student loan. I mean, it's phenomenal, because one of the challenges we have is just getting the conversation. I mean, Bobby talked about talking. I have some of my close friends know this year, I came into this year committed to reading some of my old Black books, right? I read Souls of Black Folk by W.B. Du Bois. I'm rereading for the first time in probably 45 years, the autobiography of Malcolm X. And Malcolm X talked about why the Muslims were so effective in helping people get off drugs. And he talked about a 6-step process. Step 6 was when the Nation of Islam helped someone get off drugs. The 6th step was to go after someone else who was on drugs and help them get off drugs. And Malcolm X said, just in the part I read today, that the power of helping someone who is still experiencing what you used to experience is to sustain the progress you made in what you overcame. And I think that's what Bobby was saying. That's what I've experienced, and that's what I love about Journey Church and Project Green. Wow. Who else? Anybody else from Journey or Project Green want to say a word?
I placed a question in the chat, Pastor, for Bobby.
Okay.
Or anybody else who's a trainer. Bobby, you mentioned that this was the first time that you trained, and we'd like to know, how easy was it to learn how to lead a group? And we'd like to know, because a lot of people are intimidated at first when they get the curriculum. They're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, but you took on the challenge, you won, and you did it for 11 weeks. And so we just want to know, how easy was it? If there's any other trainers on there, you can always chime in, either in the chat or in this conversation.
Great. Great question.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. The first couple of weeks, I was very concerned about the structure, and I had a PowerPoint, and all of this stuff, and I in the end, by about week 3, I realized I need to help teach and help everybody learn and help everybody discuss what we're trying to achieve in our financial lives. But at the same time, especially like if you're leading your church, there's something that happens when it's hard to explain, but just be open to how the Spirit leads you, particularly because I was trying to, because I have a lot of experience teaching financial capability. I have a year and a half of that before I became the director of ops. So that wasn't the thing. The thing was trying to integrate everything biblically, and you can't do that. Like, you can teach this secularly, and and that's going to be, I think that's going to be a breeze. But it's when the biblical references come in, you just have to let the Spirit guide you. You just get in there. And I'm telling you, there were days when, I had worked, a bazillion hours that week. I felt unprepared. I didn't have my 2 hours to prepare ahead of time. And I just had to roll with it, you know, and I just said a prayer and said, Lord, I invite you into our Bible study. I know you're already going to be there, but I'm going to consciously invite you to just take over and, let us be your tool in getting the word out and the lessons out. And every single time I did that, after I got over my big PowerPoint phase and all that, it was just like, it just flowed. You just got to let it flow. And as a facilitator, of course, I had Pastor Dallas by my side and Sunita by our side and everything, but, just all you have to do is be yourself.
Right.
And know that you're not the only one there that has something to say, right? So open up discussion. Like, I can teach a class, yada, 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 but the value, the biggest value is getting everybody else to talk,
That's right.
to say the prayers, to, yeah.
Participation is the key. Conversation is the strategy. We put Claude and Grace in the workbook precisely to facilitate discussion. We found early on that it was easier to get people to talk about other people's money than their own. And so the whole didactic strategy around Claude and Grace is to get talking. And I know my team has given you PowerPoints and pointers, and we've got video, but there's nothing stronger than the conversational aspect of this, the interaction. Dallas, you want to say something?
Really, you just said it, Pastor. That's the power, is people sharing their stories and learning from one another.
Great. Okay, so Reverend Sutton, we're going to start doing much more outreach now. You can go to dfreefoundation.org and join the D-Free Collective. Again, this is not a bureaucracy. We're not building a denomination. It's a fellowship. And I think when you look at Project Green, there is no church or organization in the country that cannot benefit from peeping in on Project Green and what they do. D-Free is just part of their larger mission. There's no organization in the world that only does D-Free. Even the D-Free Foundation does more than just the D-Free book. I mean, we're building libraries in Africa. We're doing work in South Africa, in Ghana. We started a microloan program in Ghana to help women buy seeds to plant crops and to make money. So even the D-Free organization does more than D-Free. But the key is that we have to share with each other, because listen, this is a crisis. Our friend who was the king from Ghana is in the country now, and he often says that the difference between poverty in Africa and poverty in America is that poverty in America is poverty with opportunity, and poverty in Africa is poverty, as he describes it, without options. We do have options, we do have opportunity, but the scripture says that God's people suffer for lack of knowledge. Yes, we do need to change systems. Yes, we do need to level the playing field. Yes, we do need to end predatory lending, but we also have to share knowledge, because without knowledge, people become permanently dependent on someone else. So listen, Reverend, I want to thank you for Journey Church. I want to thank you for Project Green. I want to thank you for your friendship, for your leadership. I want to thank you and commend you for the work that I saw with my eyes over this weekend, and your willingness to let me come and participate with you in your conference and in your congregation. And I'm hoping that we will get a stronger network. We're going to have a leadership conference July 29th. Everybody, you can write that down. It's not public yet, but July 29th, we're going to have our annual D-Free Leadership Conference. We'll be featuring and highlighting ministries like these from around the country and promoting it widely. And so I'm hoping all of you will stay tuned, spread the word, go to the website, join the collective. And when I talk about financial support, anybody who donates $1 or more is eligible to be a part of the collective. This is not a fundraiser. This is a fellowship. And I want to thank you. Reverend Sutton, any closing remarks, any questions that we haven't answered?
No, we just want to make sure that everybody checks the chat because the link to the D-Free Collective is right in the chat right now. You can go right to it to be sure to sign up and to register. We also want to let everybody know $1 Billion Challenge is still happening, and we're at $39,269,165. We are creeping up there to our $1 Billion Challenge mark. And so we want to continue to encourage you to keep logging in and keep paying down debt and keep accumulating savings. We want to keep you going in the $1 Billion Challenge. If you haven't signed up already, you can do so at www.billiondollarpaydown.com or billiondollarchallenge.com. Also, you can always give to the D-Free Global Foundation. We have different ways to give that you can put your $1 in and be a part of the collective. And so we want to make sure that you have those options as well. And last but not least, here are some reminders. You can visit our website at dfreefoundation.org, or you can sign up for the D-Free Online Academy at mydfree.org. Again, the $1 Billion Challenge information is there. And if you're interested in the collective, please reach out at 844-693-3733 or info@mydfree.org. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Dr. Soaries. We value your time. We value your knowledge. And Pastor Lanier, this is a wonderful, incredible opportunity to learn more about your organization and your church. I think you might have some new members. Everybody's kind of going to the website right now. And so we just want to say thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, folks, see you next month at Monday Night Live, when we're going to feature another local organization, local initiative, local ministry, and you will be as blessed next time as you are this time. God bless you.